No one could have predicted that what started as a routine promotional appearance would erupt into one of the most talked about moments in television history. It was a crisp autumn morning in New York City, and the set of the Gayle King show buzzed with anticipation. Angelina Jolie, the Oscar-winning actress, humanitarian, and global icon, had arrived to promote her latest film, a gripping drama about refugees and human rights, inspired by her own advocacy work with the UNHCR. The audience, a mix of die-hard fans, industry insiders, and curious onlookers, clapped enthusiastically as Jolie stepped onto the stage, her signature poise and elegance on full display. She wore a sleek black pantsuit that accentuated her sharp features, her dark hair cascading in loose waves. Gayle King, the seasoned host known for her warm yet probing interviews, greeted her with a hug that seemed genuine, at first. "Angelina, welcome! We're thrilled to have you here," King said, her voice smooth as silk. But as the cameras rolled and the lights dimmed slightly for the intimate chat, a subtle tension hung in the air. Little did anyone know, this interview was about to veer off script in a way that would leave jaws on the floor. What happened next shocked everyone in the studio, and soon the world. The show began innocently enough. Jolie settled into the plush armchair opposite King, crossing her legs gracefully as she smiled at the applauding crowd. The set was a cozy affair, soft lighting, a coffee table laden with mugs of herbal tea, and large screens behind them flashing clips from her new movie, Echoes of Exile. Other panelists, two co-hosts, a lifestyle expert named Mia Thompson and a comedian named Raj Patel, sat nearby, nodding along with polite interest. The audience, about 200 strong, leaned forward in their seats, phones at the ready but instructed to keep them silent. Producers hovered in the wings, earpieces buzzing with last-minute notes, while camera operators glided smoothly around the stage. "So, Angelina," King started, her tone friendly but with that signature edge that had made her a staple in morning TV. "This film is so powerful. It's based on real stories from refugees you've met. How does it feel to blend your acting with your activism?" Jolie leaned in, her eyes lighting up. "It's everything to me, Gayle. These stories need to be told. I've seen the resilience of people in the most dire situations. It's humbling." The audience murmured approvingly, a few nods rippling through the crowd. But then, King's expression shifted ever so slightly, a glint in her eye that hinted at something more pointed. "Resilience is key," she replied. "But some critics say your humanitarian work is more of a Hollywood gloss-over. Do you ever worry it's performative?" The question landed like a subtle jab, and the studio fell into a brief, uneasy hush. Jolie's smile faltered for a split second, but she recovered quickly. "I don't see it that way. My work is driven by genuine commitment. I've been in the field for over 20 years. Nobody expected the interview to escalate from there, but oh, how it did. As the conversation progressed, the atmosphere thickened. King, perhaps sensing a ratings goldmine or driven by her own journalistic instincts, pressed harder. "Angelina, you've been open about your personal life, your divorces, your health struggles. But in this film, you play a mother fighting for her children in a war zone. Some say it's ironic, given the headlines about your custody battles with Brad Pitt. Is there a line between using your pain for art and exploiting it?" The audience gasped audibly now, a wave of whispers spreading like wildfire. Mia Thompson shifted uncomfortably in her seat, fiddling with her notes, while Raj Patel let out a nervous chuckle that died quickly in his throat. Jolie's posture stiffened, her hands clasping tightly in her lap, those famous knuckles whitening just a touch. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the subtle tremor in her voice as she responded. "Gayle, my personal life is just that, personal. This film is about universal struggles, not my biography. I draw from empathy, not exploitation." But King wasn't backing down. She leaned forward, her voice laced with a mix of curiosity and challenge. "Come on, Angelina. You've built a career on vulnerability. Yet when it comes to your own family dynamics, it's off limits? Isn't that a bit hypocritical?" The studio air grew heavy, the hum of the overhead lights suddenly deafening in the silence. Producers in the control room exchanged panicked glances, one mouthing, Cut to commercial? But the show was live, and the train was already off the rails. What Jolie said next would change everything, but not before the tension built to a boiling point. The escalation hit like a storm. Jolie took a measured breath, her eyes locking onto King's with an intensity that made the host blink first. Hypocritical? Gayle, I've shared what I choose to share to help others. My mastectomy story helped countless women. But dragging my children into this? That's crossing a line. The audience was split. Some nodded in solidarity with Jolie, others leaned in eagerly for more drama. Mia tried to intervene, her voice tentative. Hey, let's talk about the film's impact on real refugees. But King waved her off subtly, her focus laser sharp. I'm just asking what the public wonders. You're a public figure advocating for families torn apart by conflict, yet your own family has been in the spotlight for years of legal battles. Doesn't that undermine your message? Jolie's face flushed slightly, not with embarrassment but with controlled fury. She uncrossed her legs, planting her feet firmly on the ground as if readying for battle. The camera operators scrambled to capture the close-ups, the beads of sweat on King's forehead, the way Jolie's jaw clenched. Raj muttered under his breath, "This is getting intense," earning a few awkward laughs from the crowd. But the laughter faded fast as Jolie fired back. My message is about compassion, Gayle. Something this line of questioning lacks. You're turning a promo into a tabloid ambush. The studio erupted in a mix of gasps and murmurs, phones sneaking out despite the rules. Producers rushed toward the stage edges, security hovering just out of frame. And just when it seemed like it couldn't get worse, King doubled down with a sarcasm-dripping quip that pushed Jolie over the edge. But what was that quip? And how did Jolie respond? The answer would make headlines for weeks. In that charged moment, the air in the studio felt electric, like the calm before a thunderclap. King's next words sliced through the tension. Ambush? Angelina, this is journalism. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe stick to scripted roles. The audience inhaled sharply, a collective breath held as all eyes darted between the two women. Jolie's expression hardened, her voice dropping to a steely whisper that carried over the microphones. Journalism? This is sensationalism. You're not seeking truth, you're chasing clicks by invading privacy. Mia jumped in again, more forcefully this time. Ladies, perhaps we can pivot to the positive. But it was too late. Jolie stood slowly, her heels clicking against the stage floor with deliberate finality, the sound echoing like a gavel. The camera's whirred, zooming in on her poised exit. I've faced real battles, wars, loss, rebuilding. I won't sit here and let you trivialize that for entertainment. As she turned toward the wings, the audience burst into a cacophony, some applauding her stand, others booing the perceived rudeness, tears visible on a few faces in the front row. King, momentarily stunned, stammered, Angelina, wait, we're not done. But Jolie paused at the edge of the stage, turning back with a gaze that could cut glass. Her next words, delivered with quiet power, would become the viral soundbite of the year. What did she say? And how did it leave King reeling? The fallout was just beginning. As Angelina Jolie stood at the edge of the stage, the studio lights casting long shadows behind her, the audience held its breath. The cameras, now frantic, swiveled to capture every angle of her poised silhouette against the backdrop of the Gayle King show set. Her black pantsuit gleamed under the spotlights, and her eyes, burning with a mix of defiance and hurt, locked onto Gayle King. The host, usually unflappable, gripped the armrests of her chair, her smile frozen in a way that betrayed her unease. The other panelists, Mia Thompson and Raj Patel, sat rigid, their attempts to defuse the situation long abandoned. Producers in the control booth whispered urgently into their headsets, one hissing, "Do we cut? Do we cut?" But it was live TV, there was no escape. The moment was raw, unscripted, and spiraling towards something unforgettable. Jolie's pause stretched just long enough to make everyone squirm. Then she spoke, her voice low but resonant, cutting through the studio's stunned silence. "Gayle, you want to talk about truth? Here's mine. I've spent my life fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. But I won't fight for your ratings. The crowd erupted, half in cheers, half in gasps. Phones lit up in the audience, recording despite the rules. What happened next would send shockwaves across the internet, but first, the tension had to boil over. Would Jolie walk out for good, or was there more to come? The studio was about to witness a moment no one saw coming. The air crackled as Jolie's words hung in the studio. King, sensing the moment slipping from her control, leaned forward, her voice sharper now, tinged with defensiveness. Angelina, this isn't about ratings. It's about accountability. You put yourself out there as a humanitarian, but when we ask about the contradictions in your personal life, you shut down. Why can't you own it? The accusation was a match tossed into dry grass. Mia Thompson, visibly flustered, tried to pivot again. Okay, let's talk about the film's impact. Angelina, tell us about the UNHCR. But her words were drowned out by a low murmur from the crowd, some shouting, "Let her speak," while others hissed, "Answer the question." Jolie's jaw tightened, her hands flexing briefly at her sides, a subtle sign of the storm brewing inside. The camera caught the flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, a fleeting glimpse of the woman behind the icon. "Contradictions?" she said, her voice rising just enough to command the room. "The contradiction is you using your platform to tear down instead of build up. My children, my health, my choices, they're not your storyline." The audience roared, a chaotic mix of support and dissent. Raj Patel, usually the comic relief, muttered, "This is like watching a boxing match," earning a few nervous laughs that fizzled quickly. Offstage, a producer signaled to security, who hovered closer, unsure whether to intervene. But King wasn't done. She had one more card to play, and it was a risky one. What she said next pushed Jolie to the edge, and the fallout would be explosive. Just when it seemed the fight couldn't get uglier, King dropped a bombshell that changed everything. Could Jolie hold her ground? King leaned back, her expression a mix of calculated calm and defiance. "Angelina, you've made your family struggles public for years. Magazine covers, interviews. If you're so private, why sell those stories? Isn't that the real contradiction?" The accusation landed like a slap, and the studio fell into a deafening silence, the kind that makes your ears ring. Even the camera operators froze, their lenses trained on Jolie's face. Her eyes widened for a split second, a flash of raw hurt that she quickly masked with steel. The audience was a powder keg. Some booed King, others whispered excitedly, sensing blood in the water. Mia's mouth opened, but no words came out. Raj, for once, stayed silent, his usual quips swallowed by the gravity of the moment. Jolie took a step back toward the center of the stage, her heels clicking like a metronome counting down to detonation. "You think I sold my pain?" she said, her voice trembling not with weakness but with fury. "Every story I've shared was to help others, women facing cancer, families in crisis. You twist that into gossip for profit. Shame on you, Gayle." The crowd exploded, a tidal wave of cheers, gasps, and scattered boos. A woman in the front row wiped tears from her eyes, while another held up her phone, live streaming to thousands. Producers scrambled, one shouting into a headset, "We're trending already!" Security edged closer, but Jolie held her ground, her gaze piercing King like a blade. The host, for the first time, looked rattled, her hands fidgeting with her cue cards. But before anyone could process the moment, Jolie made a move that stunned everyone. What did she do? And how did it leave King speechless? Jolie's next move wasn't just a walkout. It was a statement that would define her legacy. But what did she say to seal this moment in television history? With the studio in chaos, Jolie turned toward the audience, raising a hand to silence the cacophony. The gesture was commanding, almost regal, and the crowd obeyed instantly, the room falling into a tense hush. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the fire in her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands. "I came here to talk about people who are suffering, refugees, families, survivors," she said, her voice steady now, each word deliberate. "But instead, I'm defending my humanity against cheap shots. This isn't journalism. This is a circus. And I'm done being your act." With that, she unclipped her microphone, letting it dangle from her jacket, the faint thud echoing through the studio speakers. She walked toward the wings, her steps measured but resolute, the click of her heels the only sound in the stunned silence. The audience erupted again, some standing to applaud, others shouting for her to stay, a few jeering at her exit. King, visibly shaken, tried to regain control. "Angelina, we're just having a conversation," she called, but her voice cracked, betraying her composure. Mia jumped in, her voice overly bright. "Wow, what a moment! Let's take a quick break." But the cameras kept rolling, capturing the chaos. Producers rushing to the stage, security blocking fans trying to approach the wings, and King staring blankly at her notes. Offstage, Jolie paused briefly, glancing back at the audience with a look that mixed defiance and sadness. The moment was already going viral, clips flooding social media, hashtags like #JolieWalkout and #Gayle vs Angelina trending worldwide. But something unexpected happened in those final seconds before Jolie disappeared from view. What was it? And how did it shift the narrative entirely? Just as Jolie reached the edge of the stage, a single gesture turned the tide. What did she do that left the audience, and King, reeling? As Jolie reached the wings, she stopped, turning back to face the audience one last time. The cameras caught it all, her hand raised, not in anger but in a quiet plea for understanding. "To every person watching," she said, her voice carrying over the chaos, "don't let anyone weaponize your pain. Stand up for what matters." The words landed like a thunderbolt, and the studio erupted in a standing ovation from half the crowd, while others sat in stunned silence, processing the weight of her statement. King, for once, had no comeback, her mouth slightly agape as she watched Jolie disappear into the wings. The monitors behind the set flickered with a clip from Echoes of Exile, now feeling like an afterthought. Mia and Raj scrambled to fill the silence, Raj joking weakly, "Well, that's one way to end an interview," while Mia stammered about the film's premiere. Producers signaled for a commercial break, but the damage was done, the moment was already immortalized online. As the show cut to ads, the control room was a frenzy, with producers shouting about damage control and social media managers tracking the viral explosion. Outside, fans gathered near the studio exit, hoping to catch a glimpse of Jolie, while others flooded comment sections with heated debates. Was Jolie justified, or did she overreact? Was King out of line, or just doing her job? The fallout was just beginning, and the world was watching. What would the aftermath reveal about both women? And how would this moment reshape their legacies? The clip of Jolie's exit and final words spread like wildfire, amassing millions of views within hours. News outlets dissected the confrontation, some praising Jolie's stand for privacy and dignity, others accusing her of dodging accountability. King issued a brief statement on social media, calling it a tough but honest conversation. But the backlash was fierce, with many calling for an apology. Jolie, meanwhile, remained silent, letting her actions speak. The incident sparked a broader conversation about the ethics of talk shows and the boundaries of public figures' privacy. Who was right? Did Jolie's walkout inspire you, or did King's questions hit a nerve? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more unforgettable stories.